Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they have one more.
yeah, I will take it.
I'll
Yeah. And then I ask
just
you.
for this part. Yeah.
Daniel, can I get a hello?
Good afternoon and welcome to the Dutch Grand Prix. It is the first on-track action after the summer break, and we are excited to be beside the seaside because it is going to be a fantastic venue. It is Zandvoort, round 14 officially of the World Championship in 2023. And we are between the sand dunes and the salty air as we continue this 22-round championship. 10 races to go from here, and it is going to be interesting to see how the drivers tackle this unrelenting test. 4.2 kilometers, 2.6 miles, and they are really having lots to do apart from that main straight that takes you to the conclusion. Banked final corner as well, out of turn 14. Not much in the way of elevation, but plenty in the way of action. These are the tyres available. It is the soft, the medium, and the hard. It's the C3, the C2, and the C1 as we go towards the harder side of the compounds. And we are back up and running, and we've got a few thousand friends lining this circuit already. It might be cloudy, but there is a magnificent atmosphere here. The track temperature is 30 degrees. There is 20 degrees out there, but it's a very pleasant day to go motor racing, and we'll welcome you to the commentary box for the first time after the summer break. Brilliant to have your company. I'm Alex Shakes, delighted to be joined once again by a rested, relaxed Jolyon Palmer.
Yeah, ready for action again. And it's such a good venue to come to, isn't it? We really enjoy coming to Zandvoort. Huge crowd, passionate crowd. And the thought is that they're going to see another Dutch victory because Max Verstappen is going for a record-equaling run this weekend. 9 Grand Prix wins in a row, matching Sebastian Vettel. That's what they're all here for. And it's a great, great crowd, even on a Friday morning.
Yeah, this is, compared to what we used to see at some tracks on a Sunday, this is an amazing atmosphere at this point. It's not just us in the commentary box, delighted to welcome back after the summer break. You can already see him, I believe. There he is, primed and ready to go. We can make the intro go longer and longer and longer, and he has to look fine and smile. Sam Collins, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good, Alex. Hello, everybody. It's been a long summer break, hasn't it? Everybody's been at home. The Formula One teams have been not even allowed to look at their emails. But that doesn't mean the car development has really stopped because you can't switch off the old grey matter. And there are a few upgrades to see up and down the pit lane. A few interesting bits as teams try to find ways to maybe regain the gap to Red Bull Racing as we go through the final races of the season. But as Jolyon was pointing out, it does look like this might be a duel in the dunes, with only one driver really looking the favourite to take the fight to Max Verstappen. That's his teammate, Sergio Perez, who does like low-grip, twisty circuits like this.
Well, let's hope that it's going to be close and competitive. Thank you very much, Sam. And we will take you full frame on F1 TV to get the weekend up and running. It's Max Verstappen, the runaway championship leader. He is ahead of Perez just to establish things at the front of the field. And we've got 314 points for Verstappen, 189 for Perez, Alonso on 149, 1 point ahead of Lewis Hamilton. We are joined by Robert Schwartzman for this session. Sometimes he's with us on F1 TV providing expert punditry, Jolyon. Today he's in the car and he's competing in FP1, and when he's done that, he'll tell us all about it for the pre-quali show.
Yeah, we're going to get some really good insight from him then, aren't we? It's such a great chance for young drivers to get a go in FP1. We saw it last year, and we are seeing it now in this session. Carlos Sainz is not going to be heading out, so he's had a lazy morning, and we'll let Robert Schwartzman gather some data for Ferrari. And they're a team without upgrades for this weekend, so that's probably why they've thought this is an opportune moment to give Schwartzman a run out in the car, and then Carlos will be back in for FP2.
You're looking at the Haas team, who are going to once again be employing the services of Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg, and they have decided to stay with the lineup, something they've not done for a couple of seasons now. Gone for the continuity. Kevin Magnussen will be starting his 7th season with the American team as a result of that deal, and there are a few question marks over Hülkenberg's return after 3 years away after that absence, occasionally being a super sub, but he has been superb, certainly with 1 lap pace, with the equipment that he's had underneath him, and both will remain in Formula One for next year. We have a cheer from the grandstands, and we have cars heading out onto the circuit. The track temperature 30 degrees, the air temperature is 20. One thing we did see from the Formula 2 practice session a couple of hours ago is it is sandy on the racing line, let alone off the racing line. So this will be an exploratory lap for the drivers to get up to speed as we check in for the first time after the summer break with Charles Leclerc, who heads out, and his teammate for this session, Robert Schwartzman, who we saw. He's currently negotiating turn number 5 as it is back to school for Formula 1.
And a blend of medium and hard tyres to start this session as well as Leclerc heads out. It's such a beautiful circuit, this one. Really is splendid. A little bit of sand kicking up there from the back of Max Verstappen on his outlap. It's in the dunes. It's really undulating as a result. Just no huge ascents or drops either, but it's just constantly winding its way. 4.2 kilometres, 14 corners. Most of them are pretty quick as well, and they're punishing all around the outside of it. You can see grass and gravel, and that is pretty much around the entire length of the 4.2 kilometres. So it's a tricky circuit, and it's quite technical as well, with some serious banking and a little meander.
And just keep an eye on your mirrors if the guys are trying to pass you.
It really is. So it's when you walk it, you get a new perspective of quite how steep the banking is. And one of these areas here is where Verstappen's coming through the final corner, Harry Leyendijk, and out onto the start-finish straight. That will be with DRS as well. Terrifically fast and splendid to drive.
Another thing to give you a little bit of colour as we get up to speed with this Dutch Grand Prix weekend. This is the 3rd one of the modern era. Before Max Verstappen, who has won both of his home races since he returned to the Formula 1 calendar. The last winner was Niki Lauda. That's how long ago the race really was off the calendar for, brought back for one man alone. And it really is quite a tightly packed in circuit. It is a very, very tight plot, if you like, the circuit doubling back, and the fact that you have to arrange 2 separate paddocks. There's the paddock out the back of the pit lane, and there's all the team hospitality further down because they can't do it in a usual row because turn 2 and turn 3 are there. So it is a very, very claustrophobic layout for a modern racetrack.
But I love it.
Yeah.
It gives a really good personality. It's an old school track, and it's so nice to drive on something that just feels a little bit wacky when you're in the cockpit. You know, this is an F3 track in modern times. And when I was coming through the ranks, I never raced here, but Formula 3 were racing here as the F3 Masters, and that was like the pinnacle of Zandvoort. Then Verstappen came through, got into Formula 1, Dutch fever kicked off, and now it's turned into a fully fledged.
Happy to keep pushing after this for a second lap.
Great job reprofiling parts of the circuit, but it's kind of still the old layout, and it really has retained so much of that charm and character.
Yeah, banked corners, lots of speed to be scrubbed off at the end of the first sector, which concludes just before the right-hander of turn 7. And then sector 2 ends under braking for turn 11, where there is a gravel trap there to catch out the drivers. The first few meters or so resined down, glued down so that you don't get gravel on the racetrack, but then it turns into an old school gravel trap. So if you bail out of turn 11, you've got to do it properly. There is a thin ribbon of tarmac that the drivers can use. We saw that being occupied in FIA Formula 2 earlier on, where a big feature of that session as well was drivers accidentally impeding other drivers, and we'll see if we get that as we progress through this opening hour. We've got a nice arty slow-mo of Max Verstappen making his way out of turn 3 there.
I imagine we will have some impeding. It's becoming more and more a feature of F1, particularly in practice sessions, a few times, more notably in qualifying so far this year. Pierre Gasly, the most notable when he lost 4th place on the grid in Barcelona for 2 impeding incidents in Q1. It's 4.2 kilometres. It's a short lap. There's a lot of corners in that as well. 14 with those undulations means that you're pretty unsighted, and especially into those final few corners, turns 11 and 12, little fiddly right-hander into the long left of 12. Quite tricky to see in your mirror. So communication, as always, is going to be critical for the teams and drivers to stay out of each other's.
I'm not charging anything. Copy, Joe.
But in qualifying, they're going to have to be perfect with their communication and their run plans.
The fans, the majority of them out of the commentary box window, are standing up and loving just the energy around this place. It's a Sunday atmosphere on a Friday, it really is. Maybe less jovial down there at Ferrari. Carlos Sainz is watching on. Each car has to run a a rookie driver in FP1 as per the rulebook, and the sprint format means that choosing when to run your rookie driver, as mandated by the regulations, can cause a bit of a headache. We saw a lot of running last year in Austin, for example, there, but that's a sprint. So you couldn't possibly deny your driver the only practice session before you got to Grand Prix qualifying. So the team's having a bit of a headache with that as we go on board with the Williams of Alexander Albon, who is now negotiating the sweeps that have been part of every single circuit. This circuit was shortened from the behemoth that they used to race on in the 70s, but that part has always been a feature of the configuration.
So tricky on the opening laps when you've got cars all together as well. Remember Antonio Giovinazzi a couple of years ago had a huge moment there from a top 10 starting berth. So it's so tricky to negotiate those sweepers when the cars are all together. For Carlos Sainz, he's been okay at this circuit for the last couple of years. Been very, very evenly matched with Leclerc, and it is quite technical. But you're right, more sprint races, more street circuits, particularly in the first part of the.
Front tyres are really cold.
Understood.
And Ferrari have chosen with no upgrades again. They've chosen that this is their moment.
And as Alex Albon comes round the 14th and final turn, he flashes past the pit lane. And standing at McLaren, I believe, is Will Buxton. Hello, Will.
Hello, mate. Welcome down to McLaren in the car of Oscar Piastri. I just want to show you, if we can, one of the main changes to the car this weekend. There's two changes for McLaren. A beam wing at the rear, which you can't see from this angle, but also that rear wing has a completely new main plane, which is circuit specific, and you'll see the cut go all the way around where it didn't exist before. But I also want to draw your attention to the pitot tubes just on the engine cover that are coming off the top of the two sort of false cameras on either side there, which I came down and I thought, I've seen that before. And I hoped it was an actual aerodynamic appendage that they put on the car, a la the MP420 in 2005, if you remember that car, going back 18 years. But anyway, it's not, it's just pitot tubes. Shame, I love those little horns that came out of that old McLaren. Anyway, we're being moved out of the way, which means Oscar Piastri will be leaving the garage shortly, which should give us a little bit of a better look at that rear wing and the beam wing. If you can stick with me for another 30 seconds or so, if they don't get rid of the tyre blankets, we'll roll it back to you. But a lot of interest down here at McLaren, of course, who finished that first half of the season so strongly. Lando Norris saying the entire garage has to rework their minds into the realisation they can fight for podiums at every weekend. And I'll be talking to Zach Brown for the pre-race show a little bit later on today. You'll be able to hear from him on Sunday. Right, cars getting ready to come out. It's on you, mate. You've got to catch the rear wing and the beam wing as they co-pass. So we'll see if we can get a good look of it as he rolls past to go back out on track. Take a look at that rear wing, the cut between the top and rear and bottom element, and then that new beam wing on the back of the car as well. Oh, he's good with your camera, isn't he? Back to you.
Excellent stuff, James. Well done, my friend down there, giving us the pictures down there with Will in the pit lane. Let's bring in F1 TV's technical analyst Sam Collins for more on McLaren.
Yeah, fantastic camera work there from James down in the pit lane. And Will, I think I can bring in some of the details of the stuff that Will was talking about, because I've actually had a closer look at this earlier in the weekend. I got the cameramen to do some work for me earlier on and take a close look at the rear wing of the McLaren. So if we take a look at the screen I've got here, you can see that section that Will was talking about, this cutout on the rear wing. So you've got the upper element of the rear wing is completely separated from the lower element, so where the end plate would normally sit. You used to have this little element that would sit along here and link them together. Now, my drawing might not be good enough, so I can just show you what it used to look like where you...
Perez 1.53 second gap behind him if you need it. Good to push.
It's completely gone. You've got this big cutout. Well, this is something of a new trend in Formula One this season, because quite a few other teams have been adopting this approach. AlphaTauri, for example, with this really extreme version we saw last time out, and now they've brought a very similar version to the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort. But they're not alone. Alpine too have got a version of this wing solution. On top of that, they've gone down that route, and even Mercedes have got a slightly tamer version, which I think we might see a more extreme version of this cutout coming out as well. And then the final change, it was a little hard to see on the shot by James, was the lower beam wing. Now what we're talking about is this part here, which McLaren have changed quite significantly by raising the second element of this to adapt the airflow over the rear of the car. Now, this is something a lot of the teams are changing around on the back of the cars, because it's a way to adjust the aerodynamic performance for high downforce, low drag, different circuit characteristics, without spending a huge amount of time in the wind tunnel or on the cost cap for new components. So you're seeing a huge amount of teams up and down the pit lane changing this approach. And this approach of the upper element in particular, this part's just here. This part is something that a lot of teams have taken inspiration from the Alpine team on by raising that element and moving it forwards. And that's something you're going to see on a lot of cars. I know Ferrari has gone for almost exactly the same solution here at Zandvoort, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good job, Robert. Let's do constant speeds on this in-lap. Watch your mirrors. You have Ocon 3 seconds behind and Perez 3 seconds behind him. It will be engine 12.
By the technical brains in the Formula One pit lane. Pierre Gasly's just gone up to 8th position behind his teammate. A little bit of reorganisation at Alpine as well. We've confirmed who they've got on the pit wall for this race, including 2 new interim roles as they continue their management churn. It's 48 minutes to go. We've got 2 practice sessions today. Max Verstappen has gone out there and set the fastest time, which is a familiar sentence in Formula 1 2023. Lewis Hamilton's just gone over the line with a personal best, which was 1:13.8.
Verstappen's improving though. Hard tyres for the Red Bull, hard tyres for the Mercedes. Remember this time last year? The first half of the year actually started, if you just compare Red Bull and Mercedes, a little bit like it has been this year. There was a gulf between the two and they converged quite considerably, and this one was a chance for the Mercedes to win the race.
Happy to open one more lap on our tyres?
Yeah, rears are going a little bit, but I can open. See what happens.
Ricardo within 6 pushing.
But improves his best lap. He's now 6.5 tenths clear of Hamilton, as you can see. Hamilton's got that gap back to Russell, so the two of them are way clear of the field. There goes Perez now, up into 3rd, but still a second away from his teammate. So there are big gaps out the front. They're all on the hard tyres, but unlike last year, no one is getting close to the Red Bull of Verstappen, and it's difficult to see, even though Mercedes, they're quite happy with where they're at this year in the big picture. They're second in the Constructors' Championship, quite comfortably now ahead of Aston Martin, who are slipping back. George Russell was saying yesterday, you know, it's not a disaster being second in the Constructors' Championship. So used to Mercedes of the last decade, basically, winning it. But they're second, and they're content with that. That's their fight right now. And there's the fight for second in the Constructors, second in the Drivers, that is up for grabs, because Verstappen and Red Bull just in a league of their own. And they've started this weekend in exactly that fashion.
Valtteri Bottas is lighting it up as he comes out of the pit lane. Very tight pit lane here, isn't it? It is one of the tightest of the entire season due to that old school nature that we were telling you about. And Valtteri Bottas, I believe the tyre was lifting there as he joined the fast lane. Looking at his recent results, 3 12th places in a row. And the 1 point, you've got to go back to Canada for the point-scoring finish after he was beaten on the line by Lance Stroll, who took 9th place away from him in the final metre of the Grand Prix. But Bottas, complete contrast with what we saw last year, where he was scoring all of those points at the start of the year. Bottas has only scored 8 points in the last 24 races.
Yeah, and 4 of those points were in the season opener in Bahrain. He's only scored that 1 point in Canada since the opening race, where it looked like Alfa Romeo were semi-handy.
Check the front right corner. I've hit that curb to turn 12 pretty hard.
Okay, understood.
Lost it on the start.
Check the front right corner. I've hit that curb to turn 12 pretty hard.
Okay, understood.
Hulkenberg trying to maximise everything. You could take a lot of curbs around this circuit, but that apex there is a little bit more abrasive. So Nico bringing the car back. He's done 8 laps at the moment, and the team will check that one over. Williams looked fairly handy at this stage, for what it's worth. 16 minutes into the first session of the weekend, and they've started the weekend well. A team that wouldn't necessarily have thought that this would be a great circuit for them, but Albon, particularly on the hard tyre there, mixing it between Perez and Russell.
Going early on, Sargent, who is looking to extend his stay in Formula One with Alex Albon, who is in high demand, if you believe the silly season rumours. Albon has been pointing out that he doesn't have... He's approaching his peak, is the way that he put it, in the run-up to this race. 27 years old. Do you feel...
Approaching that... What?
That's what he said.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I'm nearly at the peak. Sign me now. I'm not there yet.
Carlos Sainz, you're looking at his car being driven by Robert Schwarzman in this session, yet to sign with Ferrari, and plenty of chat about that. Of course, Haas kicking off the weekend with the announcement they would be retaining their drivers. You feeling in the peak now, Cody?
No, I'm not at the peak. I'm nearly at the peak, Alex. I'm getting there, but there's more to come. Surely there's more to come from us. You don't want to be peaking, do you, really?
No. Not at 27.
Just in a steady decline. I've crested the wave now, and this is it.
That's terrible news if the peak is at 27.
Well, the thing is, they're all looking now to 42-year-old Fernando Alonso. So you're 27, you're thinking, hey, if my peak can be 15 years long, then that's pretty good going.
Not too bad, not too bad.
Lewis Hamilton as well.
Yeah, 38 years old, Lewis Hamilton.
Towards 40, and still, I mean, Hamilton, both of those guys.
Over the line, mode charge. That's now P5.
It's good news for the guys in their late 20s, early 30s, who are probably thinking, oh, how much longer have I got? Good news to see some of the older guys still out there and still pumping in the results.
Fernando Alonso was asked about that in the press conference yesterday, and he said, no, I did not think 20 years after winning my first Grand Prix I would still be turning up to Formula One races, but great passion for motorsport, and it has been a very successful season. I know they've tailed off a little bit in recent times, but 6 podiums for Fernando Alonso this year. And you go back through the early parts of the year, he's just had the presence of mind all the way through. When he was being beaten to pole position by the finest of margins, he's still on the radio saying to the team, this is magic. Look where we were last year. Look at what we're being able to do this. And Aston Martin will hope that the updates that they have brought will allow them to contend for the rostrum once again.
Do you take confidence that the great Murray Walker did a Formula One commentary age 83?
83?
So compared to Bottas, is turn 8 entry. We're braking a bit earlier.
Fantastic. That must have been...
There's life left in Alex Jakes just yet.
I'm not commentating to 83. Great job that it is. I've been told by the gallery I might have to. Whilst we work it out...
Sign the deal.
Whilst we work it out, we'll send it down to Will.
50 more years. 50 more years. Come on, Alex. Jakesy, you noticed a little bit earlier something which I think we might be just about to see, because I'm being pushed out of the way, because Fernando Alonso is about to leave the garage. Now watch his front right tyre, because this part of the pit lane is flat. The fast lane is at a very steep, well, comparatively steep angle, which means that the inside right is lifting as they hit the fast lane of the pit lane. We're going to try and grab it for you, although we might need to see it in a slow-mo replay, actually changing the angle of it. Just a little, you see, the little lift, little bump, just as he goes on to that graded part of the track. And that is an issue around this circuit, because unlike most other circuits, there are so many contours around this track. I think we've got a replay we can show actually of Valtteri Bottas doing that exact same thing. So as he leaves the garage, watch that front right, and just watch. The left front is already high on that fast lane. The front right just lifts up that little bit. And of course, what we're talking about here is the contours of the track, the fact that it ebbs and it flows. Side to side, the camber changes so much, unlike almost any other circuit on the calendar. That is a big thing about this circuit. While I'm down here at Aston Martin, a number of upgrades on the car, but Lance Stroll, you will have seen yesterday, I'm sure, an image of him arriving at the paddock with a bandage strapped to his face. The team said it was an infection. From what I understand, it may have been a cyst, which ironically enough needed to be lanced. And so it had that little procedure there. He's absolutely fine, nothing to him, but the bandage looks, I think, a little bit worse than it was. But yeah, wishing him well.
Thank you very much, Will. Did enjoy the use of Lance there. Very good. Let's check in with Lando Norris, shall we? He is about to head out with all the appendages.
And that's currently P3, fastest Verstappen on hard in a 13.2.
The raft of updates transform the season. Norris talking about the fact that the team had to get used to contending for the podium. Once again, the difference in weekend building when you're going to be at the sharp end, going all the way through to the crucial moments in qualifying. In fact, Lando was slightly confident yesterday that he believes he can get Max Verstappen in certain configurations of qualifying, and then both the Mercedes drivers.
So we're happy to build the tyre temps up on this outlap. You're all clear ahead. Max is still 5 behind on his outlap. First time lap will be no DRS.
Was over the crest there into Skyflag. Turn 7, super quick, and that is one of those ones, as Will was saying, the contours at low speed, but at high speed the cars become really, really lively. And Aston Martin are a team with Fernando with some upgrades to the floor of the car, the diffuser. They're a team that need to find some performance, because I think they've had the best chance to beat Red Bull. Probably the only chance to beat Red Bull this year, and that was with Fernando in Monaco. If they had optimised the strategy, I think they would have won the race. And since then, they had some upgrades for Canada, worked well, and they've just disappeared from the front-running action the last few races. It would be nice to see Fernando battling it back for the podium places again, and they'll be hoping with some upgrades that they can recover a little bit here. McLaren, they also, remember Silverstone? I mean, Norris was so close to the pace.
So this lap compared to Bottas, it's a little bit straight line braking turn 1 that we lost. On next place is entry turn 13. And we see other cars are staying in 5th gear for turn 13. Competitors staying in 5th gear turn 13.
This circuit's not easy to pass. It's true. 2 DRS zones, one fairly long one into the first corner through the banking of turn 14, Arie Luyendyk. And then apart from that, it's pretty tricky.
So reminder, you'll have no DRS on your first push, and we'll do 2 pushes.
Chance of safety car comes up. These are the sort of ones, if I was a McLaren, a Mercedes, maybe a Ferrari and Aston Martin as well, thinking, okay, let's at least be second. Let's at least beat Perez if we can. We'll give ourselves a chance.
Sergio Perez, whose best finish at this circuit is 5th place. He scored that last year. Proved he can overtake through here. The first time when he took a penalty, started from the back and made his way through the field.
So Fernando 3, let him by, he's pushing again. Fernando, so correction, Fernando is cool. 2, Fernando pushing 1, let him by, and then 6 back to Magnussen. So take it easy now.
There's lots of finishing where you start, but we have seen some really bold. Fernando Alonso put a brilliant move on the last lap on Carlos Sainz here a couple of years ago. So we've seen some great passing in there. Nice thing about it, sometimes you get like a Bahrain or a Silverstone, it's an overtaking fest. Every move that you do make down into turn 1 is usually on the edge because of the difficulty of getting by.
But the nice thing is, with the banking in the first corner as well, if we stay nose cam with Russell here, we might get a nice shot of that as we come into Tarzan, the first corner. Slightly raised on the outside, and it allows moves inside or outside at that corner. And there's different lines as well at turn 3, but actually the outside line is just the superior, so everyone sticks to that one, and you can carry a higher minimum speed. But at the first corner, you get the DRS, and we have seen passes inside or outside there. You've got to work hard for it.
We have to abort and box, we have an issue.
Funny noise.
Yeah, understood.
Lance Stroll there, reporting a funny noise as he coasts back to the pits. They'd already seen something on the data, which is why they were checking in, telling him to reduce his speed.
Yeah, so Alonso's gone up to 11th. Went out late. We saw him go out with Will.
And as Stroll comes back to the pits, Will is standing by, ready to see what he can spy or potentially smell on that Aston Martin.
Not a lot, very nearly shards of carbon fibre, as Zhou Guanyu was almost released into his path as he came in, but thankfully the Alfa Romeo guys managed to stop him. Can't smell a thing, mate, to be honest. Nothing hanging off the car either, so probably something internal from that. But yeah, the radio call to Lance saying that things didn't sound quite right in the garage, and I will wait to find out what, if anything, can be done about it, or indeed what it is. Find out.
Thank you, Will. roaming the pit lane down there for us. Lewis Hamilton has just done the fastest first second of anyone so far. Driver who had a good time of it here last year, and one of the racetracks where the Mercedes was suited, he was pretty frustrated with his team. Last year's the first season in Lewis Hamilton's career that he didn't win a Grand Prix. He was frustrated to see that chance slip away 1 year ago. He goes through the banking for the last time with the DRS open, and Hamilton, let's see, does improve his time, and second position then for Hamilton with a 1:13.6. 4 tenths away, quite closely matched with his teammate, who is the next car. Then it's Bottas, who's on a softer compounded tyre, and then Perez, who is on the hard tyre like those in the top 3. One Aston Martin has been called back. Alonso, just reading on the timing page, has been off the track at turn 12. That's the gravel trap under the extreme braking zone. Bit of a chicane. And you can bail out. There is tarmac, but you've got to bail out very, very early if you do so. If you try and make the corner, Jolien, you find yourself troubling the gravel, just inspecting how deep he's gone in there. And I'm sure we'll be able to bring it to you right about now. This is heading down to 10:11.
Doesn't look like there's a lot of gravel coming out from the underneath, but is he going to... Oh, he does go straight through it then. It's so easy to do that at that corner. It's not the longest of straights, but you have DRS in towards turn 11. So your arriving speed, your approach speed is just a little bit higher. And then Fernando snatched at that right front brake as he turned it in and unloaded that corner. And the nice thing about that corner is you can go straight through turn 12 and rejoin, as Fernando did. He then came in the pits and they will check the car over. A gravel wrap to the underneath of it. Reasonable speed as you bounce through there, but crucially, you can drive straight through the gravel and back onto the track. So we'll see Fernando back into the fray, hopefully soon.
Logan Sargent has bolted on the soft tyres as we approach the second half of the opening hour, and he is pushing on, understandably, with that advantage of grip from the Pirellis. He is fastest of anyone through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Just listening in as he completes the lap. And the sound of the turbocharged V6 engine takes the Williams to the top of the page. Logan Sargent knowing that he would love to maximise the next couple of races. He knows these circuits. And then as we move through the rest of the season, he goes back to the issue that he's had earlier in the year, when not only is he turning up against the rapid Alex Albon this year, he's learning the circuit for this part, and he didn't have a very good time here last year in Formula 2 when he was on his way to 4th in the championship. He did know by this stage there was a chance of getting to Formula 1, so can he take all of his knowledge from the junior championships and score his first points this weekend? That'll be his goal.
He's fighting for survival in Formula 1 right now, is Logan. 10 races to go. We've done 12 this season. We're through the summer break, and now he's starting to face some questions in the media. You get a little bit of grace if you're anyone but a Red Bull driver in your rookie season. De Vries is come and gone. He had no grace at all. But
what am I targeting here?
-5 on the dash, -5.
Do with the caveat that you're a rookie and you make mistakes and things don't go quite right, but we're yet to see Sargent really have a moment of shining, a moment of potential, and that's what he has to try and demonstrate. And these next 2 races, this one here, Williams are throwing a lot at this practice session. He's on the soft tyres already. There's a few more going on to them now. His teammate Alex Albon's just left the pits, as has Perez in the Red Bull. So we will see more on the softs, but he's already been on the mediums as well. And the track evolution is pretty big. Soft tyre should give you about 1.2 seconds. So with the track evolution a bit more than that, we'll see where he stacks up. But at least he can get a bit of confidence from this running, because this circuit maybe isn't Williams' best one on paper, but next week at Monza, that surely is their best one, where Nick De Vries, on a stand-in, managed to get 9th place. No Albon last year. De Vries was his replacement. You wonder what Alex Albon can do in that car as well, and that has got to be the real goal for Sargent, if not.
And you might have Sargent approaching on pit exit. Take a look in your mirrors. Sargent coming around turn 1 now.
Tracks as well. If you don't know them, then it's a bit harder. There's still 3 more sprint weekends as well, where you're getting minimal practice time. It's not easy for rookies now.
Heading through turn 7 and now to turn 8, Sergio Perez, who has joined Logan Sargent by putting the soft tyres on the car, and he is understandably quicker in the Red Bull, in the team that are It's a bit of a daft sentence, but they've earned the right to hear it. 10 races away from the perfect season. Unseen in Formula One history, can Red Bull be the first team to win every single Grand Prix? And having the car is one thing, but doing it every single weekend would be absolutely extraordinary if they could. Alex Albon is going nicely on the soft tyres as well. He's looking good through that first sector.
Actually 2/10 quicker than Perez in the first sector. So Checo's going to come across the line and goes nearly 4/10 up on Sargent. Red Bull to a Williams. It's not terrible from Sargent.
Oscar, turn 13 braking, the downshift looked normal this lap. Was turn 13 braking okay?
Yeah, it was better this lap.
Not suited to the Williams. Slow it down through 11, hug the apex of 12. One more corner to go really, which is 13. Up to the white line, but then use the curb on the exit. Flat out with the DRS through the final corner. And we will see where Alex Albon can go. Now the Williams can stretch its legs and try and come back to Sergio Perez's time. And it really does. Look at that. Just 8 thousandths away. And a big gain in the final sector. Good in the first sector. Again, the straight line speed of that car is decent. And neck and neck with the Red Bull.
Things you didn't expect to see around the Zandvoort circuit, with Williams looking forward. Certainly looking forward. I think Alex Albon has been waiting all year long to finally get his chance with the Williams, that has been so efficient with straight line speed. It's been a real tenet of the car all the way through the last couple of years. Fastest driver in the first and third sectors is Alex Albon, but the fastest driver overall is Sergio Perez. They're the only... Who else? Gasly's set a time on the soft tyre as well. And that's the top 4 on the soft tyre. Ocon's on an outlap on the soft. It's a 1:12.4. The time to beat around the 4.2 kilometre circuit. And there is now, with all of the aerodynamic measurement devices removed from the car, Lando Norris trying to get himself back into the form that we saw at the back end of the first segment of the season. Norris is going to make his 95th Grand Prix start this weekend.
We haven't seen much of McLaren yet today. Piastri jumped up into 9th. Norris is not about to trouble the top order with this one either, but it's his first flying lap actually. 7 laps of data gathering from him in the McLaren so far. Now he'll sweep through and shouldn't come into the pits this time, but he does. So he's still not going to get a lap on the board.
That's quite a quick dart to the pit lane. It is.
How's the balance?
Yeah, better. I think we're just lacking a bit of rotation.
Schwartzman, 1 second.
Medium speed. But
got Sargent 2 seconds. Sargent coming through. Do you want a flap adjust?
No. It's okay.
Okay, copy.
And he will be talking to Will Buxton.
Who was that, man? Fully just blocked me last sector.
Copy, Joel.
That's me ahead in the Alpine, I think it is. And I'm actually very surprised that it's taken 33 minutes.
Yeah, we highlighted
the first complaint there.
We highlighted it was coming, and then they all behaved themselves. Robert Schwartzman has just cleared Alex Albon, for example, on the run down to turn 8, but that wouldn't have been ideal because he would have had to peel away from the racing line. Schwartzman, he's only been allowed on the hard tyres so far. He's in 18th position, yet to see times from Stroll, who I was told to reduce his speed and then reported a funny noise. They saw something in the data, so he's not set a time and he remains in the pits. Lando Norris is doing outlaps coming back to the pits. We'll see if he puts a time on the board this time. Then it's Schwartzman, but Schwartzman without access to the stickier rubber.
Ocon zipping around on the soft as well, out of the final corner, and goes up to 6th. So he's the slowest on the softs at the moment. 3/10 down on his teammate, and he's still behind Max Verstappen on his early run on the hard. So it shows really how quick the Verstappen run early on was when the track was at its worst on the slowest car. Norris is back in the pits. He's just practicing pit entries at this stage. Let's see what they do.
Looping round, comes back and makes his way to the pit lane. And Will Buxton's down there, a couple of doors down at Aston Martin.
And we're playing the dance down here at Aston Martin between trying to get a shot and the boys trying to get in our way. It's a wonderful dance. We play it every weekend, and that's essentially because they've got an endoscopy.
Wow, what a... My God.
Understood.
Now they're doing it on the left-hand side. Quick move. And they're doing it on the left-hand side. Now I think it's where the turbo attaches onto the PU. They've looked on the right-hand side, now looking onto the left-hand side. So they don't want us to see essentially what's on the screen, or really what's going on in that engine bay. But the team has reported a PU issue potentially for Lance Stroll. It's definitely that, something potentially loose within that in terms of putting that car together.
Can I do 2 cool down?
Yeah, AFM.
Okay, I'll try 2 cool down.
Back from within the cockpit, because the last thing they want, obviously, is for a PU to let go because something hasn't quite been tightened or attached correctly. But yeah, doing all they can to stop us from having a look at exactly what they can see on that tiny little screen on that endoscope down here at Aston Martin. But Lance Stroll going nowhere fast until they have been able to figure out exactly what that issue is. But for me, it's certainly around where the turbo attaches onto the PU.
The brilliance of modern technology, hey?
Yeah, thank you very much, Will Buxton down there. Sam Collins at the Media and Technology Centre in the United Kingdom. What's caught your eye on that car?
Well, I've been looking at the Aston Martin, and I've been looking at before every Grand Prix, each team has to issue a list of updates that they're going to bring to each Grand Prix, and then we have to go and find them all on the bits of the car and see what engineering speak actually means in reality when you see it on the car. And I was taking a look at the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll when it came into the pits, and when Will was talking to us, and I spotted something on the car. Now, this is just Stroll's car coming in. Now, when I play forwards, watch the rear jack man and how gentle he has to be with the jack to put it onto the rear of the car. Really precise, and just pings a very small piece of carbon fibre at the back of the car. Now, if you look at that again, you can just see that small bit of carbon fibre on the back of the car. Well, if I play this clip further forwards, you'll get to see a little bit more of that section of the rear of the car. Aston Martin, all they've said is, we fitted a new winglet at the rear of the diffuser, and it's absolutely tiny. You can only just see it in this bit of footage here. You can see there's just a little T-shape at the bottom of the rear crash structure. Now, this is an area of engineering, an area of the car that no other team has yet discovered to exploit. So I think this is Aston Martin really innovating within the constraints of the technical regulations. And if this works, this is something a lot of teams are going to be.
So if you want, we can do another push, otherwise we can box. But it does look like a clear push.
Has anyone done a third push? Are you sure? Or not to me?
Not to you. Okay, copy.
Wait, was I behind on my lap, or?
So no one's done a third push yet. And all cars behind in phase.
Cooling outlet of the rear brake ducts. They've changed the little winglet details here as well. Some of these changes were not on the official FIA submissions, which is a little surprising, shall we say. And you can just see these little changes, these little intricate details, all devised to try and improve some of those slightly difficult handling characteristics and slightly different performance characteristics that the Aston Martin team has been experiencing. Then the last big change they've made is just to the engine cover. You can see this sort of shark fin section here. Now, it's completely closed underneath the shark fin, and quite often you'd see gaps underneath that to let cooling out. In fact, let's compare that to what Aston Martin had before. There you see a big cooling outlet, guys. So lots of changes down there.
Okay, Rob, you can go charge button on.
Interesting, guys.
Thank you, Sam. Nothing gets past Sam Collins. The Media and Technology Centre, Biggin Hill in the United Kingdom. We are trackside at Zandvoort Circuit on the banks of the North Sea, and Esteban Ocon has just gone round once again, and personal best all three sectors to move ahead now of Pierre Gasly, so getting good life out of those soft compound Pirellis.
Still behind the Williams cars though. Both Alpines improving on a second lap on the soft tyre. Got more laps coming in. Magnussen's just run a soft and is nudged within 1 second by 1,000th of Perez's time. Verstappen we saw on the as Will was talking earlier, saw getting very, very bolt into turn 7. I wasn't very happy at that high-speed section of track. The car's always light and difficult, and Max wasn't very happy, but he hasn't yet run a soft tyre either, so there's definitely more to come from him, of course, when he's down in 7th position. And the Mercedes duo as well. They were within half a second of Verstappen earlier on. And you can see now, there we go, Lewis Hamilton on the soft tyres, on an outlap. So we're going to see a little bit more what the Mercedes is capable of.
Looking forward to this. We're on board with the 7-time world champion, a driver that has been very competitive both times that he's been here. Fantastic battle with Max Verstappen. And was he off the... Sorry, I was looking for a stat at that
sand
point.
As he went offline there.
Yeah, it's wild. It is wild. I mean, it is not an exaggeration to say that it was sandy on the racing line at the start of the day at 11 o'clock. It is now 11 minutes past 1, and Hamilton taking the high line. That's the fastest route through. Big bump as well on the exit of turn 3 that they all have to be wary of, especially in this low fuel, lightest configuration of car. And you can see that is, even with having to go offline, Hamilton up significantly on Sergio Perez's time.
The track's getting better and better, and Hamilton going offline to start the lap was a perfect illustration of how the track cleans up as well on the racing line.
Okay, so P4 with that, the time so far. Pierre P5, he did improve on his 3rd lap on this tyre. In an ideal world, Esteban, we're a little tight with time. It would be good to come in and think about the next run. Do you think you really need another lap on this?
No, all good. Let's take the plank for last corner.
Copy that. Okay, mate, so let's box now, please. Box now. We'll have an aero cruise after turn 10 if we can.
Session, and that's a moment of confusion down there in the garage, but he's lost it coming into the final corners of the circuit.
So as he tried to jump on the throttle as he's got to that exit curve, and then the car's lit up on him, and he's lost it, pointing the wrong way. It's a really steep uphill run to the barrier, so I actually don't think he would have clouted that barrier particularly hard, even though the corner is quite quick. One of the nice design features here is it's punishing you at the gravel, but the way it ramps up to the outside, you can see it here, it's actually before the curb that Hulkenberg's lost it, and then barely even touches that wall, which isn't miles away, but it's so steep uphill.
So currently Hulkenberg is off in a gravel, exit of 13. Yellow flags at the moment. Slow down, it's a red flag, slow down, get your delta positive. All clear behind.
Just run that as well to get up to 8th place. Hulkenberg carrying speed through the final real corner, the penultimate official corner, tramples over the tyres, and off he goes, and they'll need to collect it. I like gravel traps.
Yeah, especially when they're banked like that. It gives you a lot, it really does scrub a lot of speed off the car. That is a new front wing on the Haas, and looked like it wasn't a huge smack, but it did make contact with the tyre barrier.
Nice shot of the dunes as well from above there. The topography of the circuit.
Here we go.
It's just lovely.
We are
isn't
straight
it?
into red flag chat.
It's just lovely. It's what you want a circuit. You want a natural bit of character to the place. The old behemoth of the circuit that goes through Centre Parks just next to the track. That's changed. We're 4.2 kilometres, so it's quite a short lap, but it's a fun lap. And that's just spinning backwards at turn 13, which Hulkenberg has just done.
Yeah, I saw the Williams pair do that a couple of years ago. Hulkenberg, that new contract in the bag, the car went very early on him. He's currently the fastest driver in the session so far. He used the soft tyres to do so. We've not seen the soft tyres from his teammate yet. This is Perez on his way to the current fastest time, which is a 1:12.323.
Quite a sweaty Checo in the garage as well.
Yeah.
Not particularly hot today, 21 degrees air temperature. It's quite pleasant, but it does just feel quite muggy and humid.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that going on.
Syrupy out there.
Yeah.
It is sweaty. There we go. I'm not surprised.
For a 21-degree day, that's a lot of sweat, but the drivers are working hard in the cockpit. 14 corners coming at you very quickly, and syrupy atmosphere. And he was probably looking on at Lewis Hamilton going purple in the first sector as well, and maybe going to bump him off the top spot. But Hamilton didn't go as quick as Perez in the second sector, was still up by a couple of tenths. And the Red Bull looks good in the middle sector, less so in the first and third. So that's an early thing to spot around the circuit.
Let's bring in Will Buxton as we look at the Haas being craned away from turn 13.
Yeah, nothing really to be able to add from Nico's garage. I can hear, though, from you guys that there's music being played. But I was going to say, the only change from last year is normally during the red flag, the stadium fans were bouncing because the DJ would play loads of music. But they're not this year. It's all very tranquil. Feels very, very
Someone's
strange.
blaring it out, though, aren't they?
Someone is. Maybe it's from a car stereo close to a microphone.
One Lone
somewhere,
Ranger out
it's
there.
It's not coming out of the tannoys. Disappointed, mate.
One Lone Ranger trying to bring the atmosphere to Zandvoort. Well, they haven't got Super Max on the top yet, have they?
Yeah, maybe they're waiting for that. Just another replay of Hulkenberg. You can see how quickly he can get away from you. Hulkenberg, who celebrated the start of this weekend with a brand new contract and has a slightly sticky moment as the car gets away from him. Just trying to see the state of that front wing as he got out. Red flag is flying around the 4.2 kilometers. And there is Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen trying to find an answer to the one-lap pace of Hulkenberg, who has really been the dominant, certainly over one lap, the dominant Haas driver so far this year. And Hulkenberg 9.3 up in the head-to-head.
He's averaging nearly 4/10 a lap quicker.
Wow.
On the dry running between Hulkenberg and Magnussen. It's not quite 4/10 difference, but the one-lap pace is a significant advantage for Hulkenberg. He's been a hero on Saturday so many times, getting the Haas car into Q3, showing what it can do. But his race pace hasn't been so strong, and that's where K-Mag has had some decent outings. He's actually scored more points in Grand Prix than Hulkenberg's, or I should rephrase, has scored points in more Grand Prix than Hulkenberg. Nico got the 7th place in Melbourne, but then Magnussen got the point with a nice pass on Yuki Tsunoda in Jeddah. Had some great fighting in Miami for 1 point as well, a precious point for Haas. Hulkenberg, of course, with a couple in the sprint in Austria, but in terms of Grand Prix, that Magnussen point in Miami, the last thing they've got to shout about. So quite a gap for the team.
And that's a team of your former teammates down there. Are you surprised at the performance this year from Hulkenberg, or did you expect him to do that at the start of the campaign?
I think he's quicker than Magnussen on one lap, and I was teammates with both. Hulkenberg was faster than me. Magnussen, we were actually quite even on one lap pace. And I think he really suits this generation of car as well, with the ground effect, carrying speed through the medium speed corner. He's got a very, very clinical technique of just keeping the speed, the momentum, being so smooth at the wheel until it's swapping ends on him just there. But generally, he's really, really smooth, whereas Magnussen is through fast corners, confident stuff, lightning quick, big braking zones, lightning quick. But it's the medium speed stuff, and you've got to keep that aero platform in this sort of generation of car, and that's where Hulkenberg has the upper hand on him.
There's a comparison in the medium speed corners on the graphic. Will is by the garage that you're looking at.
Yes, I just want to show you that new front wing on the Haas for Kevin Magnussen. Beautiful on the front there, and now he's there. We get a lovely chance to have a look at it. And also, you see their Lymph and Co. They're carrying that sponsorship this weekend. It's a non-profit organisation who do a lot of research into lymphoma cancers. And I lost my old man to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I know we're not supposed to have favourites, but I'm going to be rooting for them this weekend.
Nice touch. Thank you, Will. Hulkenberg immediately down there looking at the front of the car. He knows what the Haas have not had. I'm trying to think of the delicate way to put this as we get a green light at the end of the pit lane. Just an update for you. We will not see Lance Stroll at any stage. That problem has curtailed his running for the entirety of the session. Haas have not always had the easiest time with updates. They've usually been very good at the out of the box some years.
Okay, so Logan will let us through on the outlap.
I think that's a fair sentence.
Oh, completely. It's objectively true. I think they start the years very well. Some of their performances in opening Grand Prix and Melbourne, for example, have been really flying. First half of the season, often very good. And then they're hanging on by the end of the year. That's the general rule of thumb for Haas so far. And it's kind of where they're at right now. The one-lap pace is still solid, but it's having the duration on the tyres to complete stints in the Grand Prix where they're just...
Okay, so be a mixed bag of low fuel and high fuel now. We'll get straight into it.
Sunday, trying to keep the cars behind him. must have been a little bit soul-destroying for him in some of the races, particularly when there's high degradation. When it's low deg, Melbourne, really low deg, a resurfaced circuit, and he was flying and could keep that pace as well. So when it's low degradation, it's a particular strength of Hulkenberg to use that pace and not drop away. But high deg circuits, Barcelona was one where he was fighting around with the likes of Tsunoda as well there. But then just, whilst Tsunoda could fight for the points in the end, Hulkenberg just drifting away, and it's been a bit of a mercurial problem for them.
So, understandably, when you have a bit of a prang and you've got a front wing that's trying to cure some of the issues that Jolien was talking about there, that's the first thing you're going to check, and that's what the German driver was looking at. Max Verstappen, that graphic could go on longer. Last 5 races, last 8 races, he's been top of the pile when it comes to Grand Prix Sunday. He is chasing. Can't believe we...
Man, what are they doing? They're just stopped on the pit exit.
Yeah, I think they're just building a gap.
To lead the Indy 500, which wasn't a Grand Prix. Ascari did it, and we know there's no technicalities required. Sebastian Vettel won the last 9 Grand Prix of 2013. Verstappen trying to emulate the only other Red Bull World Champion.
Out there hunting for records now. The championship will surely be Verstappen's. It's just what records can he break on the way. And he's on the soft tyres here in the Red Bull sector, the middle sector. He's still not as quick as Hamilton in the first part of the lap. But then in these medium high-speed corners, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you come into 11 and start the final sector. That's where the Red Bull is strong. He's not actually as quick as Perez, though, in that part of the lap. Overall, he's still up because he's close to Hamilton and a lot quicker than his teammate in the first sector. One more corner to go. Uses the curb nicely out of 13. We'll get a slipstream from Daniel Ricciardo over the line. His former teammate gets on that dust on the inside and punches in the fastest final sector as well. Half a second pretty much to the good. But what is Lewis Hamilton doing? He's out there and had started a lap. He's backed off it in the middle sector.
So Hamilton will go again, will regather and go again. He's got an empty enough track in front of him as we join George Russell, who continues to push on. Fantastic direction change from this modern set of Formula 1 regulations through turn 7. That is awesomely quick through there.
Yeah, Hamilton's actually still pushing. He just hasn't improved in the first sector where he's already done the quickest. So Hamilton is actually still going pretty quickly out there on the soft tyre. Didn't put in a lap, but now he has, and he splits the Red Bulls at least. But here we go with George Russell then. DRS open, and he's coming down towards the tricky turn 11, 12, and he's going to have that traffic then. Bottas ahead. And is Valtteri going to jump out of the way? Wasn't particularly kind there, and he's not particularly kind here either.
Fernando Alonso has gone into second place ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Those two old rivals separated by 1 point in the championship. Russell does now clear the Alfa Romeo and comes across the line, but that lap has been ruined by having to follow all the way through. It is Verstappen.
Car was going on front on itself, I think, when I slowed down.
Understood. Okay, we're having a look now.
Lap from him. Had a very steady start to the session. Late out. Problem for his teammate.
The car was going on front on itself, I think, when I slowed down.
Understood. Okay, we're having a look now.
Was he slightly sticking throttle for Ocon as he's trying to hit the brakes, or what you can actually do, and it was the bane of my life sometimes, was actually put your foot on the throttle as you're trying to hit the brakes as well. And maybe that's what Ocon's a very tall driver, a little bit like myself. He's even taller than me, and when you hit the brakes, the inertia, the force of stopping, you can sometimes just put your right foot gently on the throttle and it pushes the car forward. It doesn't sound like he's got a major issue. You can't see him on the throttle there, so it might just be that he's just trailing the throttle. He needs to pull his right foot back a little bit more as he's coming into the corners.
So Verstappen, Alonso, and then Lewis Hamilton, who is getting on towards 0.4 of a second adrift. But Mercedes, I know it's a short lap, but I think Mercedes will be intrigued to see that Alonso has managed to post the second fastest time here. This is going offline, showing how sandy it is off the racing line down into turn 1. And then Max Verstappen. So he completed his lap. He passed Daniel Ricciardo. He had the tow, and then he had to bail out immediately because Ricciardo was starting his push lap.
And that offline section there, that's going to take a while to clean up because no one's really wanting to drive on it because it's so dusty offline. Now, there's going to be races from tomorrow already in the support series, which will help, but That could be an interesting feature, trying to get on that inside line off the start. If it doesn't really clean up, look, every driver is just coming through, just going straight over those left-hand side grid spots. Could well be what you want for the race start.
Very interesting if there is a huge offset. It used to be more pronounced in the past, but you do still get various different tracks. It used to be Budapest, didn't it? That would be incredibly dirty and dusty off the racing line.
Well, we hyped it up this year, didn't we? Because Hamilton was on pole. He's had a big moment there.
Turn 13.
Yeah, that was the Hulkenberg corner, but Hamilton managed to catch it and not join the German up in the stands there. Budapest this year, what was the stat? Once in 20 years or something, the guy in second has taken the lead off the start, and Hamilton was on pole, and Verstappen was beaten in a qualifying. And then, of course, it's 2023. Through went Max at the first corner and sailed away to the win.
Yeah, just boxed him out, got the launch that he needed, and there was no chance to position the car, and he sailed on by. After you won the GP2 championship, you did a reserve. We'll pick it up after this. Let's hear from Lando Norris first.
Yeah, I need where to improve. Driving, let's see. Minor, purple C2, position 5, purple C2, position 5. Opportunity, focus exit turn 2, first push car, Tsunoda turn 9.
So Norris getting some information there about where to improve. He goes past Logan Sargent. He's up.
Yeah, I need where to improve. Driving, let's see. Minor, purple C2, position 5, purple C2, position 5. Opportunity, focus exit turn 2, first push car, Tsunoda turn 9.
It's super unstable.
Okay, copy that. Yeah, we saw a few snaps there.
So yes, the question about Schwarzman was you've been in this situation where you've just got the odd chance to do an FP1 here and there. Do you feel pressure going into those sessions, just being dropped into a team in race configuration, or is it a real opportunity to learn something?
You feel pressure, you really do. It's anytime you're driving a Formula 1 car, there's pressure. There's huge amounts of money being put in. There's a huge amount of workforce and man-hours being put in to put this car on track, and then you're trusted with doing crucial work at the wheel. And not only that, but you're trying to prove yourself something. You're trying to prove to the team and the world that you can be pretty good when you jump in the car as well. So there's always pressure when you're in. And for Schwarzman here...
Okay, Fernando, so we'll only get 2 more time laps, so I would continue push now. Continue push, go to Strat 5. Strat 5. It will do a bit of charging, but we'll only get 3 laps anyway.
Is crash the car when you jump in. I remember Antonio Giovinazzi when he was reserved with Haas.
Yeah.
Ditched the car in Budapest. He managed to do that when he had a stand-in chance with Sauber as well in China. And it's not good for the reputation. He overcame it and managed to get his full-time seat in F1. But that is not the thing that you want to do. So you're treading the fine line between pushing hard, showing what you can do, but not making mistakes. And let's see what happens with Schwarzman. He's only a couple of goes into the corner there. That's turn 10, and a little bit of instability on the exit. And it's very difficult to gain the confidence as well. And we know that this Ferrari is not the easiest car to drive, full stop. Both drivers have been in the wars a little bit this year and have been complaining about the inconsistency. So for Schwarzman to jump in and show what he can do, it's a very, very difficult ask.
Yeah, the Ferrari over 1 lap.
Alonso at 3.
Let's try one more if that's okay.
No problem, so keep an eye on Alonso, car behind, so he may be on a lap.
Well, Sainz officially the second best qualifier so far this year.
Really?
Yeah, on average grid, on average, he's P5 on the grid, and obviously there's a couple of penalties and mitigating factors in there for Charles Leclerc, but yeah, obviously Max top. Charles Leclerc is the 5th fastest qualifier on average this year.
An average qualifying place of 5th on the grid?
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a very slow lap, try and find me some space if I need to go a little bit faster.
Read Piastri. 2 to Piastri, yeah, we've only got a minute to go to the flag.
Evenly matched, really, but Leclerc, I think he's been more inconsistent, but he's definitely had the highs of Ferrari. 3 podiums, could have been 4, but for Bahrain. He's shone in the sprints, had pole position in Baku, but he's also had the Miami crash and a few other big weekends. I guess for Leclerc, it's weekends like Barcelona, where he was 17th on the grid, that just hammers the average. You've got Mercedes that have been a little bit up and down. Aston Martin, sometimes, I mean, Alonso was leading in Jeddah and then has been a little bit off the pace, and the team has drifted away in the last ones. McLaren were nowhere in the start of the year. It's been so topsy-turvy behind Red Bull. And then you got Perez, who didn't make Q3 for 5 races in a row. No way can he be up there.
There you go. Average of 5th on the grid, good enough to be the 2nd best qualifier, and that's for Carlos Sainz, who hasn't visited the Formula 1 podium.
Okay, we'll be very tight with the flag. If you don't see it, strap 5, keep pushing.
At the end. Worth saying as well, though, that Lewis Hamilton looked mighty through that first sector. Time and time again, he's been quick through there. He did back out of that lap. Oh, off the road goes Max Verstappen. As the checkered flag is out, the fastest driver is doing what Fernando Alonso did and taking a trip through the gravel at turn 12.
Yeah, he was still pushing. It almost matched his best middle sector there as he came through, but overcooked it. And now he'll take the checkered flag along with the rest of them. It's close enough, isn't it, at this stage? Alonso and Aston Martin will be delighted. Stroll didn't manage to get anything on the board, so that'll be a frustration for him. But Fernando's their man, the guy banking the big points, and he's back towards the top spot, 2nd place. Mercedes, I think Hamilton had a bit more in there, but the red flag came at a bad time for him. Williams, 5th and 7th still. Surely they're flattering themselves with a bit of fuel load or engine modes there, but they'll be pretty chuffed as well.
They'll be very pleased if that is an indication that they can fight for points. That's what they are hoping.
Yeah, have a look what happened my last lap. Everything was quite smooth until the exit had a smooth snap. I feel like the wing has changed. Thanks.
Gravel trap, and then you're into the slightly tougher stuff. Virtual safety car test as well. As the field line up, they go past our commentary box, and it's a very tight pit lane with nowhere safe to practice the start. So at the end of this session, they are all lining up, and at a track where it is very difficult to overtake. The knowledge here is very important to be confident with the starting procedure, as we have one real overtaking opportunity on the racetrack, and that's turn number 1. As we look at the man who won here in Formula 2 last year on the way to the title, that was Felipe Drugovich, who is the reserve driver down there at Aston Martin, and enjoying his screen time as well.
He's got the memo, hasn't he? Dark shades inside the garage. Living life as an F1 driver.
Selling the look down there. It is a packed grandstand pretty much everywhere you look at this.
Yeah, I definitely felt a bit of drop in terms of grip, especially rear from turn 7 onwards. But yeah, I would say it's working on expectation, kinda. Probably the rear was a little bit too weak in the end, especially sector 3.
Kobuyuki.
To be the history maker on Sunday. And that is the day complete for the man that we will hear from in the pre-quali show. Robert Schwartzman will be telling us his experience. We heard him on the radio earlier on, saying the rear end was unstable. And Charles Leclerc didn't venture onto the soft rubber in that session, so the Ferraris are 16th and 19th as we cycle through the practice starts.
Yeah, that's effectively Schwartzman's qualifying done. Give it everything you've got, and that's his only chance to shine now. Well, one of probably 2 for the year for Schwartzman, and he'll be back in the garage with the headsets and the coffees now. 19th, but he kept the car on the track and could provide a little bit of feedback. Ferrari didn't show anything in that one. Leclerc said. And all these practice starts will be cleaning up that mucky side of the grid as well.
Yeah, important that is the case. Certainly, it very, very sandy off the racing line. This is a circuit that is used for the rest of the year. It's not like a racetrack that we go to, say, Canada, that gets an outing where it's used, or a Jeddah where it's a permanent facility, but it's not used too often. There is a lot of racing.
All good?
Yeah, all good. Good job.
That you're always going to have sand on the track.
And the beach.
Yeah.
Just behind the grandstands there. Beautiful place.
Zandvoort. Place to go motor racing. What were you thinking?
Yuki Tsunoda, 9th place in that as well. As a final little nugget for the session. 1/4 of a second up on Daniel Ricciardo. So that's an interesting rivalry, isn't it, for the rest of the year? 1-1 really between those two. Ricciardo was the slightly stronger in Hungary, Tsunoda got a point in Spa, and that's going to be an interesting battle moving forward. And Ricciardo 13th, it's just FP1.
Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo in the press conference saying that he was very appreciative that Red Bull didn't chuck him in after the summer break. He was very grateful that he got the chance in that car to have 2 race weekends under his belt. And he's cutting in the paddock a totally different character to the one that we saw in the last couple of years at McLaren. Clearly having been away, has a greater appreciation for what he's achieved in the sport and what he hopes still to achieve in the sport as the early afternoon's work is now complete for the teams down there in the very, very tight pit lane. Practice starts complete. FP1 is in the books. And it's Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton, Perez, and Albon in the top 5. And there's Oscar Piastri. And his mother becoming a social media sensation in the summer break, tweeting, basically roasting Oscar on Twitter, or whatever they called it this week. And Nicole Piastri becoming a firm fan's favourite. I didn't think she didn't like the look of him on the bike too much when he was visiting a MotoGP race held at Silverstone. And we are up and running. Nice place to go motor racing. Wonderful atmosphere in the grandstands. Those grandstands are emptying now. They're off to go and get some lunch, and we're off to take you through the order.
Yeah, the pit lane is super tight. Can I give some feedback?
Yeah.
Encouraging for Alonso that lap time to be just under 0.3 of a second away. Then it was Lewis Hamilton, mighty through the first sector. They're going to be training their attentions on the middle part of the lap. Sergio Perez in 4th position. Albon stand out in 5th ahead of Norris and Sargent. Piastri, Tsunoda and Ocon completing the top 10. To the second page we go, which is headed by George Russell. And then it's Pierre Gasly ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen and Valtteri Bottas. We're saying Bottas was on the medium, as was Leclerc and Zhou. Hülkenberg was on the soft but had a spin at turn 13. And Robert Schwartzman has completed his day's work and finishes it in 19th. Lance Stroll had an issue, means he didn't set a time on the boards. Well, my thanks to Sam Collins and to Jolyon Palmer. They will be back later on. I hope you will be as well as we complete more exciting action around this unrelenting challenge of Zandvoort. Now, though, we can send it downstairs to Lawrence, to Will, but first of all, to Laura.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Jake. Yes, welcome to the paddock after that FP1 session, a pretty entertaining one at that. Will, thanks for your efforts in the pit lane. And I mean, look, we've got the Haas garage just behind us here. Hülkenberg, not the session, not the start he'd have wanted, certainly as he signs a new contract as well this weekend.
No, but you know what? It just shows how quick this track can bite. We saw Verstappen go off and run through the gravel as well, and he's ended up top of the times. It's just one of those things here. The track is incredibly slippery, incredibly dusty. And as we saw with Nico, the rear just starts to go. He almost gets it back and then just put it out. I think he's still actually out somewhere on track waiting for a ride home, actually.
Yeah, we heard he's still out there somewhere at turn 13 looking a little bit fed up. So hopefully we'll see Nico Hülkenberg back here. And of course they're running that upgrade, that new front wing. And that front wing didn't look in too good a shape after that run into the gravel.
No, so the good news is they do have one more left.
Great,
so they've got one spare, but the question is, do they risk putting that on in FP2 and then damaging that potentially, not having it for the weekend, or do they just hold on to it maybe into tomorrow and run it just before qualifying, just to make sure that they can have it on the car for the sessions that matter? So yeah, got big decisions down at Haas. Frustrating though, because obviously they've been working on this upgrade for a long time and they don't get many of them, so to damage one and not get a lot of running on it is frustrating.
As the guys were saying, how great to be at a track that has natural deterrents and sort of the gravel traps that put one wheel off and you're in the grass or on the dust. That's what you want, you know, not miles and miles of asphalt runoff, proper track, you know, but also with how steep that runoff was, the damage could have been so much worse if it wasn't for the steepness of that. Actually, I think he got away pretty lucky with that.
And I don't mean to brag or anything, but I did do my track run here last night. I'm running every single track this year.
What was your time?
It wasn't bad, about a 5:20 per average kilometre, so about 22 something round
Do you
here.
know how long it took Jolyon to run this?
I don't want to know because he came thundering
It will
past
make
me.
you sick.
Go on, tell me.
Did 15-minute laps.
Stop it.
No,
Dick.
seriously.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Seriously.
He left me for dust at turn 1, and I was like, don't look at me, just keep going, don't even talk to me, and that's amazing.
Disgusting.
He's an athlete, isn't he? Jolyon Palmer in there in the commentary box, he's still got it. But I could tell you how steep the banking was. You couldn't even run. You weren't running on a flat surface. You were running sort of genuinely like this.
Yeah.
It was so hard just to even run and to walk, let alone for these cars to go. Like, what a challenge this is. And not just that, do we have the natural challenging characteristics of this circuit generally, but the dust on top of it. We saw that racing line, Lawrence. It's going to be an issue out there this weekend for these guys.
Yeah, we saw Max come off it a little bit when he was passing Ricciardo and kicking up all that dust, and no one wants to go on it because they don't want to dirty their tyres and do it, which means the dust is just going to sit there. And obviously we're surrounded by these dunes. We've got the beach obviously just over the way as well, so that's going to continue because it's gusty now. The wind just picked up. It's going to continue to gust on to the circuit and become a problem this weekend offline.
It's an inherent issue with this circuit, which, as we know, it's tight, it's narrow, it's twisty, it's difficult to pass on at the best of times. You're not going to even attempt that pass if you know that going offline you're going to dirty your tyres. The same is true if you're on the wrong side of the grid, because everybody taking the racing line, you're going to have one side of the grid dirty, one side of the grid clean. But you can't just run through the wrong side of the grid thinking, oh, I might have an odd number or an even number, whichever one it'll be. You know, so yeah, it's one of the difficulties of this circuit.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all transpires through the weekend. Indeed, as we do see a bit of rubber put down, certainly from the likes of F2. Williams just behind us. No, they're not. That's the FIA. Williams just next to us here. Good job, Ian, knowing the layout of this paddock. It's a bit different and all. That's my excuse. Some promising early pace at a track in which they were pretty clear they would not be any good at. They were already sort of looking ahead to Monza in some respects.
Yeah, Alex didn't really think that they were going to be that strong when I talked to him in the TV pen yesterday. But then that car has been kind of up and down. Look, it's early in the weekend. I think the most interesting thing from that I took from it is that Logan was inside 2/10 of Alex. We've been talking a lot this weekend so far about the pressure on his shoulders. He's under pressure to keep his seat at the team, and to deliver a performance like that at the start of the weekend is super important, and hopefully will boost his confidence. Now he's just got to keep building on that rhythm and hopefully manage to keep up with Alex over this weekend.
Yeah, Williams P5 and P7. And you're right, it's really impressive from Logan Sargent to come out after, I'd imagine, a barrage of questions yesterday asking him about his seat and his future, that the rookie has gone, I'll do my talking on the track, thanks very much.
It's only FP1. Let's see how we go through FP2, FP3, because as the track rubbers in, as the guys dial in the cars, we will see consistent jumps. Logan has got to make that same jump with Alex session to session, then put it all together in qualifying when it matters. That's where he's really struggled this year. And then put in, we know he can put in a good race performance, but he has to get it done in quali and stay close to Alex. But, as Lawrence said, to be within touching distance.
Of course, making his debut out there in the Formula One place of cars, one in the place for him.